Wednesday, November 6, 2024. You are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Clint Daly, coming to you from the Mile High City here in Denver, Colorado, and we are back for another week of talking sports with a dose of common sense. Hey, happy Wednesday to you. I hope your week is going well. I hope your friends, your family, everyone in your world is staying strong and healthy right now. Yes, I know. That's some scary things going on. Got a election that took place yesterday. Kind of trying to sort those things out. Hoping the sun comes up today. Keeping our fingers crossed on that one. And I know we also had that whole daylight savings thing. That makes our week just a little bit more rough as well. Hopefully you're staying away from tall ledges of buildings and those kind of things, at least right now. But you know, the World Series, of course, is now over. We are now in November. And you know, we talked about it a little bit last week of the dose, but you could see that the Los Angeles Dodgers, they're just better than the New York Yankees. And that game 5, that clinching game, kind of showed exactly that. As the Yankees, of course, jumped out to that early lead, but then they just made way too many mistakes to beat a team that is as talented as those Dodgers. Hey, congrats to the Los Angeles Dodgers on winning that World Series. Like I said, it lends a little bit more credibility to that 2020 weird COVID World Series that they won. There's no doubt this franchise is capable of winning big games. And also, I've got to say this, big thumbs down to New York Yankees fans who actually made Dodgers fans look good by comparison, which is crazy to think about. But I mean, with that fiasco we saw in Game 4, that mess with Mookie Betts out in the outfield, I mean, you wouldn't see a player make a play at the wall at Chavez Ravine and then have a ball get taken from them. Come on, Yankees, what are you doing? Yankees fans, you're supposed to be better than that. You're supposed to be the big dogs. Act like you've been there. Isn't that what they say? Act like you've been there. We wouldn't see that in L.A. Mookie would have gotten stabbed too in L.A. Hey, today on the show, we actually have something extra special for you because we are going to be joined by President of the Daly Dose I-Team. Yes, I am talking about Big Rob. We are going to be breaking down the college football season at the midway point. Which is where we are right now. Hey, this season is going fast. We are going to be looking at the teams that are living up to the hype, as well as the teams that have disappointed us. We are going to take the chance to revise our picks for that college football playoff. We'll be making our pick for the Heisman Trophy and who is going to be winning the title. We will have it all for you today on the dose. In fact, we have so much to get to. We need to jump into that right now. Joining us this week on the Daly Dose, right now we have a longtime friend of the show and acting president of that Daly Dose I-Team that finds the big stories that no one else can get. Big Rob is here to take a look at the college football season at the midway point. Can't believe it's already the midway point. Kind of depresses me. Rob, we knew going into the season that it was going to be wildly unpredictable. I think it's been more surprising than we even thought it was going to be. This past weekend, we saw 7 ranked teams get beat. We're seeing upsets every single week, and the week we think there won't be any upsets, we get more. Is it just the pay-to-play stuff is making parity more prevalent in college football? What's going on here?
I think that is it. At least once a week, we get a good upset or like a really close game. Some of that might be to this conference realignment as well. But yeah, I'm certainly enjoying it. You know, every weekend you get at least one really good game or like really big upset.
I love it. And, you know, this is the first season with that massive conference realignment that you talked about. And while it is still weird, you know, the 2 big dog conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, they have been highly competitive. We have really interesting matchups that we didn't have in the past. Like, it's been really, really fun every week. You're like, oh, they play this week? Oh, they play this week? Like, it's been a really fun schedule with those 2 big, massive conferences.
Yeah, I agree. And I understand why both those commissioners are trying to rig the playoff in the upcoming years to make sure more of those teams get in, because like you said, there are so many good teams now. And even with the expanded playoff, you know, there's still going to be a really good 2-loss team, coming out of the SEC,
Yeah.
or that might not make the playoff, but is, a really good team just because, the conference is so powerful now.
Well, and we went through back in August and we made our picks for the college football playoff. And a lot of it, you're kind of throwing, a dart in the dark. It's not easy to do. But even now, we've kind of had some smoke clear. It's still not easy to do because, like you said, we're going to have some 2-loss teams getting in. Okay, but which ones? That's where it's going to get sneaky.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks to go. And like you said, there's still, every week I'm still expecting another big upset. And then those losses change throughout the year. So like those early losses, like I know probably we'll get into this later, but like Vanderbilt, that upset at the time was, can you believe it? But then, okay, Vandy's not great, but they're actually decent. It's not,
right,
the traditional Vandy. So yeah, putting all that together, yeah, it's going to be wild. But I'm definitely looking forward to the playoff, though.
I'm too. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be unpredictable. And we legit this year could see someone we never expected getting all the way through. We've had a couple of, hey, the 4th team out of 4 is maybe a tiny bit of a surprise. We could have someone blindsided this year and sneak in. Rob, I want to jump into each conference today, maybe even look if there's any teams, from that group of 5 kind of region, and see which teams have surprised us, which teams have disappointed us and have let us down. And in the ACC, when we were going to the season, we were looking at the defending champion Florida State Seminoles. Hey, they lost some people. They'll still be okay. They'll still be all right. They'll still at least be tough. I predicted Clemson was going to be the team that was going to win the ACC. I believe you picked Miami to win the ACC. Let's get the bad news out of the way right up front. Who has been a big disappointment for you in that ACC?
Well, you already mentioned them. FSU being 1-8. I mean, that's inexcusable, really. I mean, just
Unreal.
because talent-wise, that's a Florida school, a traditional program, and there's talent there, so there's no way they should be 1-8 at this point. That's inexcusable.
It's completely insane. I mean, they got curb stomped again on Saturday by North Carolina. That's not a good North Carolina squad. That's a team that got blown out by James Madison. Quarterback DJ Ukulele, he was horrible. And now I don't know, I think he's at truck driving school. I don't even know where the guy is at. I don't think Mike Norvell's job is in danger quite yet. But this has been one of the worst collapses I've ever seen from a team that was really, really strong last year. Rob, here's my question. Is this all bad karma for them whining about not getting into the playoff last year when they lost their starting quarterback?
It's got to be. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. Who else do you have for a disappointment in the ACC? Because I have Florida State as mine.
That was my big one. Second disappointment is kind of ironic. Is going to be Miami.
Okay,
because they're winning, but they didn't bring back the the turnover chain.
I'm right there with you.
I don't know how those were supposed to go together. They were supposed to bring back the turnover chain, and then they're good. But somehow they are still good. So that's disappointing to me personally.
As usual, Rob and I are in perfect lockstep. Yeah, I don't understand it. They were horrible. They had the turnover chain. They get rid of it. Just bring it back. Just bring it back, and let's make things right again. Let's get Luther down on the sideline again. What are we doing? What are we clowning around for? All right, let's move over to the happy side of things. Who's your surprise of the ACC? I would assume we're probably going to have one team that's going to be very similar for us.
Yeah, I've got 2 for you.
Okay.
The first one probably be match on SMU.
Yeah.
8-1. Their only loss was to BYU by 3 points, which I'm sure we'll get to BYU later. But didn't see that coming. Joined a new conference. Thought they might struggle a little bit, but they've been pretty much rolling, and so I didn't see that coming at all.
I didn't either. And head coach Rhett Lashley, he has got them scoring some points. I know maybe their schedule doesn't look great, but they beat 2 ranked teams. I mean, you beat Pitt, you beat Louisville. Now, their only loss in the season is that loss to BYU, but it was close. SMU has a legit chance. I'm not saying they're going to. They have a shot to maybe scrape their way in because they just might be playing in that ACC title game. There is a chance they could be there. Who would have thought it? We talked about a team could sneak in, SMU could be that kind of team that could sneak in. Rob, who else do you have as your surprise? Because SMU is my surprise for sure.
My second one was Pitt. I'm
Yep.
currently 7-1 right now. New coaching staff in there. Expected a little bit of a turnaround, but again, this is another one. Having them being 7-1, had a bad loss to SMU, really bad. But outside of that, like I said, that's their only loss this season. They're pretty much rolling, and I didn't see that coming either.
I didn't either because we know every year Pitt is Pitt. They don't really do anything. Hey, they're going out and they're getting it done. They're scoring some points. They're moving the ball down the field. We watched a little bit of them early in the season, and you're kind of going, okay, they look good against bad teams. No, they're legit. They're nice, pretty nice squad. Okay, so Rob, we've got our disappointments, we've got our surprises. Now, again, smoke is cleared a little bit. Who are you going to make your ACC champion? Remember, they've got to get through that title game too. Who's going to be your pick for the ACC?
I'm sticking with Miami. They've been pretty good all year. They've had some close games. But worst comes to worst, I think they'll the ACC commissioner keep taking those calls at the end of the game to make sure they stay undefeated through conference play.
Yeah, they did kind of get away with one a little bit. I'm going to change my pick. Clemson pooping the bed on Saturday to Louisville just kind of killed it for me. I'm going to have to switch over to Miami. Miami is just one of 4 teams in the country that is still undefeated. Quarterback Cam Ward is a legit Heisman candidate. Hey, the Hurricanes should be conference champs, and they should be headed to the college football playoff. Here is why one concern for Miami. They haven't played a ranked team all year. On the regular season schedule, that won't change. Now, in the ACC title game, they could play a ranked team, but I don't know if I believe in them as a national title contender for that reason. I'm not saying they can't. I'm saying I'm not sure. We haven't seen them play anyone real good yet, and we've seen them have to squeak out a couple of tight games. That gives me a little bit of a cause, for concern. But yeah, Miami looks like the class of the ACC right now. Let's move over to the Big Ten, where the Michigan Wolverines, of course, went all the way to the national title this year. They've stumbled. They've lost so much. Coming back, Jim Harbaugh, well, he was going to get at least a stern talking to by the NCAA, so he left, and a lot of their top players did as well. But that Big Ten, Rob, we talked about it at the top, these big conferences just being stacked. Oh, my goodness. The Big Ten is so loaded. It was already good. They picked up some of the top teams in the Pac-12 as well. Rob picked Oregon, I believe, to come out of the Big Ten. I picked Ohio State. We'll see how that goes. But, Rob, your disappointment of the Big Ten so far is
going to be USC. Yeah, at the beginning of the season, I had them sneaking into the playoff. I thought the defense was going to be a little bit better, which they were, but it seems like the offense took a step back. And even with the conference change, like I said, I thought the offense would still roll and the defense would, be good enough to keep them in games. But that hasn't been the case. And that's my biggest disappointment by far.
USC is now 4-5. And I know we keep hearing that head coach Lincoln Riley, he's not in trouble. I'm starting to wonder if he's in a little bit of trouble. USC is only allowing 22 points a game. You talked about that. Defense is a little bit better. That's fine when you're playing LSU or like Penn State or something like that. But when you're giving up 22 points a game to like Minnesota and Maryland, they shouldn't be scoring anything on you if you're really a big dog. And like you said, the offense has been so much worse. Miller Moss is throwing way too many interceptions, not taking care of the ball, not making good decisions. Biggest thing for me, though, USC is soft. You can push them around up front, and they're getting beat up a lot. I thought they'd be better than this. They are my disappointment as well. Who else do you have as a disappointment, Rob?
Second disappointment for me, I'm not personally disappointed, but Penn State is just disappointing. Like I said, kind of expected it. We talked about it earlier. They just can't win the big game. I just find that disappointing. Like I said, it is expected at this point, which is probably saying something in itself. But just disappointed that they haven't been able to get over the hump yet.
And, they had a shot on Saturday. Here, everything was set. Go beat Ohio State. Go take care of business. 3 possessions inside the 5-yard line and didn't get any points out of them. James Franklin, I think he's exactly what that school needed to put the Paterno stuff and the Sandusky stuff kind of behind them. You just want to see some progress. Can you beat a ranked team? Can you beat Ohio State? You haven't quite seen that. Going to be very, very interesting to see the offseason for Penn State, because you can't let the guy go, can you? Like, he's been good. He just isn't ever great. Yeah, I understand that. All right, let's move over to the surprise kind of thing. I would imagine we're going to have the same surprise, because there is one team surprising everyone right now in the Big Ten. Who do you have as your surprise, Rob?
Indiana. Number one surprise. I didn't see this one coming at all. Not even on my radar. The schedule hasn't been great, but in their defense, they're not squeaking by those games. I mean, they're winning by a couple touchdowns, comfortable wins. So I guess they're good, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm completely surprised by their turnaround.
I was too. I had no idea. Head coach, is it Kurt Cignetti? He, has come out, talked a little bit about, hey, we're for real. Like, we're getting after it. Quarterback Curtis Rourke, he looks like he's pretty good. He's firing the ball over the field. They put up big points, but we're gonna find out real fast, because Indiana has Michigan this week. Don't trip there. Don't slip up because you're looking ahead, because then after that, they're going to go to Columbus and they're going to face Ohio State. We're going to find out if Indiana's for real, because in this conference, there's too many good teams. You don't get a skate and be like, well, we'll get all the way to the title game before. No. We're going to find out if Indiana's for real. I don't know quite what to think, but like I said, we're going to find out. So going into the season, you had Oregon as your champ. I had Ohio State. Rob, Oregon already beat Ohio State. I think there's a strong chance there could be a rematch between those teams in that Big Ten title game if things go as we kind of think they will. I don't like the way Ohio State's playing right now. They can't run the ball consistently. They've got a lot of talent at wideout, but they always do. I'm gonna just be stubborn. I'm gonna stick with Ohio State. I don't care. I'm gonna go Ohio State. If they lose, so be it. Who's gonna be your pick for the Big Ten?
I'm sticking with Oregon. You said, Ohio State. Just haven't trusted them. I wasn't high on them to start the season, and like you said, just always slow start. I feel like every game, they don't really get rolling to the third quarter. You always checking that score, and it seems really close. And so something seems like a little bit off there. So I'm gonna stay with Oregon.
No, you're exactly right. They do seem a little bit off, and we talked about it prior to the season. Like it or not, Ryan Day is on a hot seat. If you can't beat Michigan this year, when can you? You've got to go take care of business. I know they should roll over Michigan this year. Michigan's really not that good. You better go beat them, because if you don't, you're out of excuses. And again, if you think it can't happen, ask John Cooper. We move next to the Big 12, which of course lost Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, but they picked up Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State. Rob, don't get me wrong. This conference has a ton of talent. It really does. But this conference has been massively disappointing to me. We're going to name disappointments. I'm going to be honest. I hope we have enough time to get through the whole show, because I've got a number of disappointments in this conference. I believe you picked Kansas State, Rob.
Yes.
Going into the season, you picked Kansas State to win the Big 12. I picked Utah. I'll get right back to them in just one second. Rob, if you had to pick your disappointment in the Big 12, who do you have?
Biggest disappointment for me was Oklahoma State, currently 3-6. This is another team I had sneaking into the playoffs, and I just thought with Oklahoma and Texas leaving, still a steady program, they would be able to do enough, even with the newcomers, to at least be in the mix. But to have them at 3-6 at this point in the season, that's my biggest disappointment by far.
Well, and they're 0-6 in the conference, and now it's the point they're kind of getting blown out every game. Mm-hmm. They're not even really competing anymore. I know he's a man. I know he's 40, but my goodness, at what point do you have to start going, hey, what's going on in Stillwater? Why aren't we better? I'm a man. I'm 40. Like you said, we got rid of the two big dogs, and you aren't doing anything this year. Oklahoma State is a huge disappointment for me. I'm going to throw out the team that I picked to win this conference. I know they lost 47-year-old quarterback Uncle Rico, Cam Rising, whatever. But my goodness, that's one guy. Why isn't Utah better? Utah is now 4-4, I think. 4 straight losses. They may not win again this year because of the way their schedule lines up. They literally might be done winning. It might be over. The offense is bad. The defense is not great. Utah has been a massive disappointment. Who else you got, Rob? Anybody else?
Those were the 2 I had. I agree, like you said, with Utah, even removing the QB situation, that's usually a good defense. Whittingham's usually a good coach, and to see them just go into a free-for-all is definitely unexpected.
Well, and Utah is usually that physical team. They don't get pushed around. They're at least going to be tough. They're not even tough this year. They're not even, it doesn't look like a Utah team. I don't know what's going on there. Arizona was supposed to be maybe not a conference win, but they're going to be at least tough. They've been awful. I think they're 3-6 now. They look horrible. And the defense we knew would be iffy. No, they're awful. And then quarterback Noah Fafita, he's regressing. Little free advice. Noah Fafita, you might not know the Daly Dose. Listen and listen well. Transfer now, transfer quickly, because that is a mess at Arizona. He needs to get out. Kansas is awful. I thought Kansas would be better. They're now like 2-6. Jalen Daniels keeps throwing the ball to the wrong team. My goodness. Kansas is disappointing. I could make a strong case that Kansas State is a little bit disappointing because they're not quite as good as what we thought. That game against BYU, well, again, we don't see Kansas State get pushed around like that. They got pushed around that day. Big 12. Whew, disappointing. Okay, Rob. Enough about the bad teams. Who do you have for a surprise in the Big 12?
3 surprises here. My number 1 surprise, the team you just mentioned, BYU. New to the conference, similar like SMU. New to the conference, and thought they would be able to hang. But yeah, didn't see them undefeated at this point. Didn't see that coming at all.
No, well, and you talked about they've already beat SMU. They curb stomped Kansas State. That defense is really, really good. And that's the funny part to me because, I'm old. I think of BYU. I think of, offense. They're firing it all over the field. And no, this is a physical team. They play very, very good defense. Quarterback Jake Retzlaff, dual threat guy. He can beat you a few different ways. Yeah, BYU, very, very solid. Now, I have a little bit of concern about BYU only because that Big 12 is proving to maybe not be that stout. I think the Big 12 might be an inferior product, but BYU has a legit shot to be a college football playoff team. I think they're probably going to be facing maybe an SMU or an Iowa State in that Big 12 title game. They're going to be pretty good, and they have a legit shot to go to that college football playoff. Who else do you have as a surprise in the Big 12?
Second one I had for me was Colorado. Traditionally, I always bet the under on them.
Of course, as well you should.
But better than I thought. Coming together, I think going forward, as we talked about, I think they still need to actually do some recruiting and not, worry try to build everything through the transfer portal, because they are a little thin. But yeah, they're, they've been pretty good.
Well, and Colorado has a really nice schedule the way it's shaped up for them, because you don't play a BYU. You're not going to play an Iowa State. So you're going to, play the Texas Techs, and, Kansas State beat them. We won't even talk about what Nebraska did to them. Wait, Nebraska just scored again. I don't know how, Deion went to church. I don't know what he did, but the schedule shapes up really, really well for Colorado. Hey, take care of business. Don't go out there and get, one of your 2 studs hurt, and you ought to be at least in contention to get to that Big 12 championship game. I just don't know how much I can trust that defense against a legit good football team, because like I said, we saw what Nebraska did, and Nebraska's not good. Nebraska's not a very good football team. So we saw what they did. So I don't know about that. So as it stands right now, if you're picking your champion, I'm going to change my pick. I'm not going to stick with Utah. I'm going to have to go to BYU. I think BYU is just probably the toughest team left in this group. Who do you have now as your champion? Unless you want to stay K-State, and I would encourage you.
Yeah, no, I'm going to ride with K-State.
I like
I
it.
think I think they're going to avenge that loss
They're going to
earlier
bounce
to
back.
BYU. Yeah, so I'm gonna hang on there. I don't feel great about it, but I'm
I
gonna hang with
understand.
them.
I understand. I'm doing the same thing in the Big Ten. Let's finish up with the big dog of college football, the always powerful Southeastern Conference, who added Texas and Oklahoma to be, goodness, even more stacked than they already were. But, this conference is a little bit different this year. It doesn't feel top heavy from the standpoint of, hey, no, we've got the elite, not quite as good, but maybe a little more depth further down than it has in the past few years. The SEC is tough. I don't think it's quite as good, like I said at the top, but man, there's some good teams that you're like, but really? They're good this year? Rob, I believe that we both took Georgia to win this conference.
Yes,
I
I
think
think
that's the
so.
case. Okay. But let's get into disappointments first, because I've got two disappointments. Who do you have as a disappointment?
Yeah, I've got two as well. For me is Ole Miss. This was the year they did the recruiting. I can give them a pass on the LSU loss, but the
Right.
loss to Kentucky is
No,
unacceptable. So just for that loss alone, this is my biggest disappointment in the SEC.
agreed. And that loss to Kentucky has had some decent teams in the past few years. This isn't one of them. That's a bad football team. How you lose that? And my pick for Heisman was Jackson Dart. He's not getting any help, and I'm not saying he's playing well. They're not blocking for him. They're not catching for him. Not going well for Ole Miss. I'm going to give my disappointment to the Oklahoma Sooners. I know Sooner fans were hoping we're going to come to the SEC. We're going to take it by storm. We're going to be a contender. That has not happened. They are now 5-4. They have been blown out, not beaten, blown out by South Carolina. They finished this year Missouri, Alabama, LSU. They might not win again. Hey, head coach Brent Venables might be in some legit trouble down in Norman. I don't know that we expected them to be a big dog, but my goodness, I didn't think they'd be this bad.
Yeah, I agree. That was my second one as well,
Okay.
Oklahoma. And simply because, like you said, they got embarrassed by Texas and they got
Oh,
embarrassed by South Carolina. And like I said, it's
yeah.
one thing, if you're competing, it's a one score game, that's fine. But I mean, just to get completely blown out for a program like that is just super disappointing.
Did not see that. I hate to do this. Rob, I've got to do this. Alabama's a disappointment. I'm sorry. Alabama's a disappointment. I know we're all spoiled by what Nick Saban did down there, but we're not used to the Crimson Tide being like so undisciplined, so shaky in big games. Jalen Milroe feels like he's regressed just a little bit. And I thought the defense might be a little bit worse, but hey, Kalen DeBoer is going to come in. They're gonna put up some big offensive numbers. No, they don't run the ball very well for starters. They can't get stops when they have to. Rob, they got beat by Vanderbilt. And I know Vanderbilt's not the same. I get it, but my goodness,
Still,
why do I feel like if Nick Saban's there, Bama's still undefeated? And I know that's probably unfair, but I just feel like there's no way he would have let them have some of the nonsense they've had going down. I'm going to give them a slight disappointment. I didn't think Bama would drop that way. And having said that, they're still very, very dangerous, but just not quite what we're used to. Okay, let's move over to the happy side. We're probably going to have the exact same surprise. Rob, who is your surprise of the SEC?
well, I've got two, and
Okay.
so I'll go with the one you just mentioned,
Yep.
Vandy. Usually terrible down at the bottom of
Yep.
the SEC, but they
Homecoming
beat
game.
Bama. They beat Alabama. They almost beat Texas. And just, yeah, this is something I didn't see coming. Just, when you talk about the SEC, rarely think about Vandy. And like I said, they're having a decent season.
Hey, quarterback Diego Pavia, he's not this prototypical kind of quarterback. He's tough. He's effective. He gets it done. No, Vandy, they're no longer the homecoming team, at least not this year. And, it's funny. This last week, they beat Auburn. Not a upset, just went out and stomped Auburn into the ground. When does that happen? No, Vandy is legit pretty dang good. Not a national contender, but they're pretty solid. You don't slip up and forget about Vandy, because they'll beat you. They're good enough to actually do that this year. Yeah, Vandy was my surprise. Who else do you have as your surprise?
My second one was Texas A&M. Talked
Yeah,
about them at the beginning of the season. Elko is a good coach, but just maximizing on that talent that Jimbo couldn't. They did have a bad loss to South Carolina, but I think they're still going to be in the mix. He's got something going there. And so I kind of expected this, but I'm surprised that it's happened this quickly.
Well, and South Carolina is a team, we didn't really talk about or whatever. I can't quite figure them out because you look at them and you're like, you've beaten some decent teams, but they'll have a slip up and lose to a dog. I don't understand South Carolina. They were on the fence. I actually had A&M down until that loss this weekend, and I was like, I pulled it. But no, A&M could still be dangerous. Could still be a dangerous team. Could be one of those sneaky 2-loss teams that you might not want to see. Okay, I'm sure we're going to probably do the same thing. But Rob, I'm going to write it out. I don't like the way they're playing, but I'm going to stick with Georgia as my SEC champion, and I'm not going to feel good about it at all.
Same. Sticking with Georgia. Like I said, some of their wins have been a little concerning, or just their overall play this season. Similar to Ohio State. They seem a little bit off, like not how they usually are. So I'm still riding with them, but yeah, I don't feel great about it.
Well, and we saw on Saturday, quarterback Carson Beck, 2-3 interceptions, forcing balls. Maybe doesn't have the playmakers that he's had in the past, and so he's kind of feeling like he has to do a little bit more. But it makes you real nervous, especially when you think of down the stretch. You get to the SEC title game, you could be seeing, Texas, Tennessee, A&M. It might not be that easy. They could slip up and get another loss real easily. I'm going to stick with them. Not going to feel good about it. Okay, so of course we spend most of our time talking about the big, the big dog conferences. But what about those group of fives? Do you have any teams in the group of five? We don't plan on a whole lot. We don't expect a whole lot. But do you have anybody from the group of 5 teams that's a disappointment to you? I've got one.
Same. For me, it's Liberty.
You've got the same one.
Yeah, that was my team. I thought would sneak in. The schedule lined up nicely.
Yeah.
And then they lose to
Kennesaw State and now lost to Jacksonville State. Mm-hmm. They've got back-to-back losses. That schedule couldn't have been softer. Go take care of business. You might scrape your way into the college football playoff. You couldn't beat Kennesaw State. Really? Yeah, Liberty, your disappointment. I don't know what you're doing this year, but yeah, not good. What about surprises? You got any surprises in the group of 5? I've got one.
I just got one as well. Notre Dame for me. Took that early loss, and I thought it was going to fall apart for them, but they've kind of maintained, hung in there. That schedule is pretty weak, pretty soft, but it seems like they've kind of put it together, and I think they've positioned themselves well to maybe sneak in the playoff.
They've got a shot. I'm going to go in a different direction. It's going to be a team that's going to face Notre Dame. Hey, the Army Black Knights, they are still undefeated. One of, 4 teams left undefeated in the country. And no, they haven't played anybody, but that's going to change a little bit because they're going to host Notre Dame coming up. And then we'll get that big game against Navy. Now, they could lose both of those. I totally will admit that. But can you imagine if Army somehow got through the season undefeated? They would at least have a shot of getting to that college football playoff. Having a military academy in the playoff would just be hilarious. I would love it. It won't happen, I know, but I would love to see it. So I'm going to make Army my surprise. Rob, prior to the season, we made our pick for the Heisman Trophy. Like I said earlier, I picked Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. He has not been very good this year. He hasn't had a lot of help. The Jackson Dart's not going to win it. I'm going to change my pick. I'm trying to remember, Rob, you picked, did you pick Jalen Milroe, Alabama?
Yep. That was my pick.
Okay. Would you like to amend your pick for the Heisman?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to do that as well. Here we go. All right, Rob. We're not even going to do contenders. Give me a winner. Who is winning the Heisman Trophy? I've got 2 guys down here, and I'm literally flipping a coin as we speak. All right, Rob, who do you got? Who's winning the Heisman?
All right. Well, I have to throw a disclaimer in here.
Okay.
So I'm going to throw out 2. So Boise State running back.
Yeah.
If he breaks all the records, it's a lock. He has to get it.
You got to give it to him.
He has to. So
you got to give it to him. Yes.
Yeah. So that
right now, Ashton Genty has over 1,500 yards and 21 touchdowns. He's averaging 8 yards per carry. I'll give you one other caveat that Genty could win it. If they are starting to look like that group of 5 team that could get into the playoff, that might propel him to get the Heisman, because you're not talking about their little group of 5 playing in the Mountain West. No, they're looking like they might be a college football playoff contender. Ashton Genty could be a guy that kind of sneaks in there just for that alone. I'm going to be interested. Okay, I'm not going to go Genty either. We're probably going to pick the same guy. All right, Rob, who's your pick?
Yeah.
Who's winning the Heisman?
Yeah, so that was the clarifier. So I had 2. I'm gonna say them both.
Okay. Okay.
It came down to me. Cam Ward and Dylan Gabriel are my 2.
Yep.
I went with Cam Ward for Miami because that defense is worse. So I think he's gonna have some more games where he has to bring them back from behind 20. And so it seems like he's the better quarterback. So my updated pick is Cam Ward, Miami.
See, and I went Cam Ward, Miami. And almost for the very same reason, but also because he's getting to play those ACC defenses. So he's getting to put up those big numbers. I mean, same thing. Cam Ward right now has 29 touchdowns. He's got 3,100 passing yards already. He's putting up massive numbers. Yeah, it came down to me, Dylan Gabriel or Cam Ward, but I thought, well, Cam Ward's going to face lesser defenses. And for that reason, I'm going to go Cam Ward. My goodness, this is a little bit spooky. I know, Rob, we do this every time, but like we don't plan these things out. And then here we are just going, okay, yeah, same. All right. Like I said, we made our picks for the 12-team college football playoff back in August. Now, at that time, we hadn't seen anybody play. We're almost going off of last year to a degree. It's so difficult to pick these teams. Clear back then, we haven't seen them play. We're not getting preseason games. We're not getting any of that. So we're kind of guessing. Now we're going to change it. We're going to totally redo it. We're going to scrap that. We're starting over. All right, Rob, let's go through 12 teams. Once we get all 12, then we are going to go through the whole thing and make our picks for who's going to win each game. Let's start at the top. Let's start. I'm going to feel awful when I make my number 1 pick. Who is your number 1 team going in to the college football playoff? At number 1 is who?
Number 1, and I will say I had a hard time with this as well. Beginning of the season was tough, and even now that we have data, we still have 3-4 weeks to go.
Really hard.
It's still tough. But yeah, my number 1 pick overall is going to be the Big Ten champ, Oregon.
Okay. I went the same way. I'm gonna predict that Ohio State beats Oregon in the rematch, and for that same reason, I win Ohio State. So I've got Ohio State at 1. Rob's got Oregon at 1. At number 2, who do you have?
Number 2, the undefeated ACC champ. Give me Miami at number 2.
I've got Miami at number 2. At number 3, who do you have?
Number 3, they figure out a way to win the SEC. Give me Georgia at number 3.
Okay. I am going to go number 3, undefeated Big 12 champ, BYU, squeaking just ahead of Georgia because they don't have a loss, which means we'll probably just swap these teams. Who do you have at number 4?
Number 4 for me is going to be the Big 12 champ, Kansas State. They beat BYU in the rematch, and so they're in there at that 4 spot as the champ.
Okay, so then I've got number 4, Georgia, SEC champion, but they do have a loss, and kind of a rough loss at that. At number 5, who do you have?
Number 5 is a 1-loss BYU. Kansas State beats them, but it's close. The committee still rewards them, so they're still in the playoff. 1-loss BYU, number 5.
Okay, I've got number 5, 1 loss by then, because Ohio State, of course, is going to come together and figured out. I've got 1 loss Big Ten runner-up Oregon. At number 6, who do you have?
Number 6, another 1-loss team here. I've got Indiana sneaks in.
Okay. All right, Indiana. I have got at number 6. I've got with a loss on their record. I have got the Texas Longhorns getting in. Moving on to number 7. Who have you got at 7?
Number 7, Notre Dame. 1-loss Notre Dame.
I've got 1-loss Notre Dame as well. At number 8, where are we going at 8?
Number 8, give me Ohio State.
Okay. I snuck in Boise State here. I think Boise State's going to roll to that Mountain West title. Maybe that they get a little more respect for being dominant. So I snuck Boise State in probably too early, but I stuck Boise State in there anyway. They've got one loss. When you think about their one loss is to Oregon. It's not bad. Boise State, I know they're not playing the tough schedule some of these other ones are playing, but Boise's right there. At number 9, who do you have at number 9? Now we're getting to these teams we're going to have some squawking when we get down to the back. Who do you have at number 9?
Yeah, they stay with 2 losses here, and I've got Texas A&M.
Okay. I've got Tennessee at number 9, and I don't feel great about that because I think Tennessee could still be facing another loss. I like the way they started the season, but that offense is coming. It's getting really, really tough to find consistent offense. Defense is very good. That the young quarterback talented, but SEC defenses, they see talented every single week. At number 10, who do you have?
This is the team that loses to Texas A&M right at the end of the season, but still makes it in. Texas.
Texas still gets 10. In. Okay.
Yes.
At number 10, I don't feel good about this. I'm going to say Penn State still sneaks in. I'm going to put Penn State in there. It would be massive if Penn State actually did that, but I'm going to say Penn State overcomes a tough loss at home to Ohio State and they get in. Number 11. Who do you got at 11, Rob?
Number 11, SMU makes it in. 2 losses.
Okay. I've got Texas A&M getting in and getting that spot. And then at number 12, who is the final team getting into your bracket?
This is the highest G5 champion, Boise State.
Boise State. I've got Indiana sneaking in at number 12. So we're not that far off. Okay, it's going to get confusing here. We're going to kind of roll through this because it does get confusing, but let's just go with your first round. Just give me, I guess, who do you have? You give me the games in that first round. So the first round playoffs would be number 12 versus number 5, 11 versus 6, 10 versus 7, and 9 versus 8. The top 4 seeds are getting a bye, and they're going to head through. If you have your first 4 games ready, who are your first 4 games in that first round?
Yep. First game, I've got number 5, BYU, versus number 12, Boise State. Okay. And I've got BYU winning that game.
Okay.
Next, I've got number 6, Indiana, versus number 11, SMU. Indiana gets exposed here. Give me SMU winning that game. Next, I got number 7, Notre Dame, versus number 10, Texas. Notre Dame's not ready. Give me Texas. They're back, in air quotes. Texas wins that game.
Yep.
And then my last one is going to be number 8, Ohio State, versus number 9, Texas A&M. Give me Texas A&M. Ryan Day gets fired.
I love your bracket so much, Rob. I've got number 12 Indiana at number 5 Oregon, with Oregon advancing. I've got number 11 Texas A&M at number 6 Texas, with Texas advancing. That'd be fun. Number 10 Penn State at number 7 Notre Dame. And Penn State gets the very first big win of James Franklin's career. Not only do they get in, but they win one game. And then I've got number 9 Tennessee at number 8 Boise State. And Tennessee has to go up to the Smurf Field and they get beat by Boise State. They're worried about the ducks that keep flying into the field. Boise State advances. All right, Rob, we're moving on to the second round. What do you have going on in the second round of your college football playoff?
Okay, second round, big boys are back in action. So I've got number 4 Kansas State versus number 5 BYU. This is, I think, probably be the third time they're playing now. So we're just going to alternate. Give me BYU wins that game.
Okay.
Next, I've got number 3 Georgia versus number 11 SMU. It was fun while it lasted. SMU, give me Georgia winning that game.
Okay.
Next, I've got number 2 Miami versus number 10 Texas. Miami, the defense comes back to haunt Miami. So give me Texas. They're still back.
Oh, they
Texas
are still
over
back.
Miami.
All right.
And then last, I got number 1 Oregon versus number 9 Texas A&M. The game is closer than it should be, but I've got Oregon advancing.
Okay. I've got number 5 Oregon at number 4 BYU. Oregon advances. Number 6, Texas at number 3, Georgia. Texas advances and gets that revenge. Number 10, Penn State at number 2, Miami. Miami scrapes through because, it's Penn State. Number 8, Boise at number 1, Ohio State, that I don't feel good about. Ohio State advances. All right, Rob, give me your semifinals. Who are your 4 teams remaining, and how do they line up in that semifinal?
Yeah, semifinal, I got number 1 Oregon versus number 5 BYU. And the other semifinal is going to be number 3 Georgia versus number 10 Texas.
I've got number 5 Oregon versus number 1 Ohio State, and number 6 Texas versus number 2 Miami. Rob, who is advancing to the college football final?
Comes to an end for BYU, so give me Oregon advancing from the first game.
Okay.
Second semifinal, Georgia versus Texas. Texas still back. Give me Texas advancing over Georgia.
Rob, I've got Oregon advancing versus Texas. We don't go over these things before we do the show. We just go out and record it. I thought there's no way we're going to do it again. My goodness. Rob, we don't plan these things. They just happen.
No.
It's honestly, it's unreal. I don't even understand it. My goodness. What's funny is every year I feel like we go here. No, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be exactly the same. It's unreal. I didn't think we'd do it again. We absolutely did it again. Well, I guess y'all can just conclude from this that Texas is not going to play Oregon in the final. But having said that, we've got a decent track record picking these things, so I'm not going to feel bad about it. Mm-hmm. Okay, Rob. So now we have our final game. We have our college football championship game. We both have the same teams getting there. I don't know how we managed to do that. Who is going to win the college football national championship?
Yeah, we've got Oregon versus Texas. Texas hype train is out of control, but unfortunately they lose. Give me Oregon to win the title. I do not like Dan Lanning. I'm on record saying that, but yeah, give me Oregon.
When you've got the roster that he's got, and you've got the quarterback that he's got, no, Oregon's going to be really tough to beat. I've got the same thing. I've got Oregon winning the whole thing, and they're going to be tough. I don't know if they're going to win it. Hey, we're picking this, beginning in November. Who knows what's going to happen by then? But no, I feel pretty good about Oregon because, again, best team, maybe. Best quarterback on the best team. Yeah, they're at least in the hunt for it. That's a really athletic team he's got up there, which is funny to think about. They were that close to losing to Boise at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was that close. And that is kind of that parity we were talking about at the top. This whole thing is really, really tight. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how this all shakes out.
Yeah. And like you said, so much of that's going to be determined too by the bracket. Because like I said, different team wins the conference, how that all shakes down. Because, just like with any sports, I mean, matchups are important. So yeah, but definitely looking forward to it.
In the here and the now, we got to talk about something that is happening. Because, Rob, the NFL is now getting to that midway point. Is there any chance we can get you to come back next week and break down the NFL in a similar way where we can kind of take a look at what is going on in the NFL right now and try to make any sense of it? Because that league is wild this year. I'm not quite sold on a number of teams yet, number of things that are confusing me. Any chance we can have you come back next week and maybe discuss some NFL as well?
Absolutely. College has been good, just like we talked about, and I think the NFL might be even better. Like you said, there's no real clear-cut favorites. Everybody's got a weakness, and there's some middle-of-the-pack teams right now that I could definitely see getting hot and running away with it. So, yeah, I'll definitely come back.
Well, and we talked about it just before we started recording. There's some teams I've seen you look really good. I've seen you look horrible. Trying to figure out who are you? I don't know which one you really are. I can't quite figure it out. But we might have to do the same thing and kind of look at who's surprising us, who's disappointing us, and then kind of who do we trust? Who's gonna actually be, in it and be a contender and maybe be a threat to go win this thing. I think back to the picks we made back in August, September, I feel pretty decent about some of our picks. But there have been some teams that have surprised me, both good and bad. Next week, I'm hoping you can come back and discuss those teams because the NFL is shaping up for another really, really fun season. But Rob, I've got to thank you for so much that you do, so much that you contribute to the Daily Dose. I always enjoy your visits. I always love having coming in and talk, NFL, talk hoop, talk college basketball, talk obviously college. Maybe, talk Premier League, whatever, talk boxing. Rob can take care of any of it. But Rob, thank you so much. We always enjoy your visits.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Hey, next week of the Dose, like we just talked about with Rob, we are going to be looking in at the NFL season at the midway point as well. And we may have a few more friends stop by. We'll see who we can track down there. But who are the biggest surprises? Who is disappointing us? Now that we have seen, 8-9 games, who is going to be playoff bound and eventually going to Super Bowl 59? We will answer all of those questions and many, many more here on the Dose. So be sure to stop by and be sure you let a friend know to do the same. Hey, I want to say thank you to Big Rob for all you contribute to the Daily Dose. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for listening to the Daily Dose every week. Thank you for the emails. Thank you for the texts. Thank you for the tweets. Thank you for going over to DailyDoseSports.com each week and checking in with what we have going on over there. But more than anything, thank you for sharing the show. Thank you for sharing the videos, for sharing the articles with someone that you know. We absolutely love it when you do that. Have to say thank you to JSP. Could not do any of this without you. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week, everybody. I'm a man. I'm 40.